Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1831A, and today's date is April 2nd, 2019, and the title of the episode is Confirmed Patriots Shut Down the Recession. Now, I want to talk about Trump and how he's draining the swamp. Donald Trump arrived back from a golf weekend smiling as he walked across the White House lawn. His smile wasn't about the golf, though. It's taken 2,800 subpoenas, 500 search warrants, 19 lawyers, and 40 FBI agents for Donald Trump to announce the attempt to tie him to Russia interference in the election campaign had failed. It was a complete and total exoneration, he said. So after 22 months of investigation, the president triumphed again. There is no case for impeaching him. He just keeps rolling with the punches. Since being elected, he has also overseen the first major tax reform in 30 years, the lowest unemployment rate in 18 years, the lowest job claim since 1973, and the highest Dow Jones index level in U.S. history. If you're a fan of the president and you want to show your support, you might want to celebrate the news with one of these solid silver or pure gold President Trump Freedom Coins. Go to TrumpCoin2020.com and also make sure to use the code X22 to save $5 off per silver coin, and use the code X22 with gold at the end to save $100 off the gold coin. To get these coins, don't forget to click the link below and use the code X22. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we know the central bank, the deep state, their plan was to bring down this economy. And a while back, a couple of reports ago, we talked about how China was helping Trump stop this recession. Now, first, we know that the Federal Reserve, they were planning to raise rates through the year of 2019, going into 2020. During the elections, they were going to have the economy come down. Trump and the Patriots, they went ahead and they stopped the Federal Reserve. There are no interest rates that are going to be increased this year, 2019, and we don't even know about 2020. But Trump and the Patriots, they needed something else. They needed stimulus. They needed something to prop up the entire system. You have to remember, the central banks all throughout 2008 to the present day, they've been using stimulus to keep the system alive, pumping in currency into the system. Now, what does this do? It keeps the statistical numbers looking great. They're able to create currency and have other central banks buy stocks, keep the stock market up. They're able to fund other central bank systems. And they're able to make the economy appear like it is doing fantastically. But in reality, it's completely falling apart. Remember, there's a lot more to the economy than the stock market, the manipulated unemployment numbers, the manipulated GDP numbers, and whatever else they can manipulate. Because when people can't find jobs, when countries cannot pay off their debt, when countries have to implement austerity, when the people are just angry at all these taxes and more taxes being piled on. I mean, think about it. New Jersey needed a rain tax to help their economy. A rain tax, where they're going to tax people on the runoff of rainwater. Now, we know this is part of the global climate solution, where they're going to tax everyone. Actually, they were going to try to implement this carbon footprint, and they would tax you on your carbon footprint. Now, this was not going to help the economy. This was going to help individuals become very, very wealthy and help the central bankers keep the system alive longer to pay off the debt. Go back in history for a second. When you read about history and about kingdoms and governments taxing the people and continually taxing them until the people can't give anymore, is because their system was collapsing. They didn't have enough funds. Today, it's the same thing. When they create more and more of these taxes and they're becoming more and more ridiculous, and you're scratching your head going, wait a minute, this isn't right. That's how you know the system is breaking down. Because pretty soon they're just, well, we're going to tax the air that you breathe. We're going to tax you if you look at the sun. We're going to tax you if you get hit by rainwater. Because they don't know any other way on how to keep the system alive. And this is what they do. They bleed everyone dry. And this is where we're at today. So Trump and the Patriots, to keep this system alive, they needed stimulus. Now, the Fed was tightening. The ECB was winding down. And they needed it from someplace. And we mentioned this before, but we're going to be talking about that in just a minute. I wanted to head out to the UK for a sec here because we are seeing exactly what we thought was going to happen. The BREXIT is in limbo. A couple of reports ago, we talked about the BREXIT, on how they were going to continually delay and delay and delay. Well, guess what happened? Theresa May has addressed the United Kingdom again after hosting an epic 7 hours of government meetings and told the nation she intends to delay the BREXIT again to get her deal agreed by Parliament, or else open the door for a softer BREXIT. What does this all mean? Remember Nigel Farage? He warned that one delay to the legal BREXIT date would lead to another delay and another delay, and before you knew it, they were going to end up canceling the BREXIT. Actually, this is canceling the BREXIT in disguise, because you're really not doing anything. You're keeping the country in limbo. And this is what the central bankers are doing. Remember, they're never going to let the UK leave. And I know there's percentages out there saying that there's going to be a no-deal BREXIT. I would be shocked if this actually happens. It'd be great if it did. But the central bankers are not just going to sit back and say, okay, you got your BREXIT, go ahead. We're just going to go our way, you go your way. They're going to keep the entire thing in limbo as long as they possibly can and try to get the people to cancel it. They're going to try and maybe even push a second referendum to try to say, look, the people don't want it anymore. See, all said and done. This is how the central bankers work. They don't want to lose control. If they lose control of the UK, well, other countries are going to see this. Other countries are going to be quite angry at this. And they're going to say, well, if they can do it, we can do it. Look how much better they're doing. Why don't we do the same thing? And they don't want this to happen. Now, of course, in the UK, they're blaming the economy on the BREXIT. Now, the BREXIT didn't even happen. They're still with the EU. But they're blaming it on the BREXIT. I mean, I remember the referendum when they said, if you vote yes for the referendum, the next day it's going to crash. The whole system's going to come down. Guess what? It didn't. It's called fear-mongering. In London right now, property prices are dropping. And real estate is suffering the largest drop in a decade. This has nothing to do with the BREXIT. This has to do with the global economy completely failing. And we're seeing it in every single country. We're seeing it in London. We're seeing it in Canada. We're seeing it in Australia. We're seeing it in the United States. I mean, don't you see a pattern here? We're seeing the economy, the global economy, the central bank economy, completely falling apart. It's not like, oh, it's isolated to Canada and that's it. We don't see it anywhere else. Everyone else is doing fantastically. No, we see it everywhere. It's a pattern. It's a centralized system that's falling apart. Remember, the central bank system only lasts between 40 and 50 years. That's it. Yes, they figured out a way to keep the system going by manipulation, by stimulus, but eventually what happens, the whole thing falls apart. Here in the United States, the economy, I'm not talking about the stock market, I'm not talking about GDP, I'm not talking about unemployment, I'm talking about durable goods, I'm talking about retail, I'm talking about housing, I'm talking about people working. That's all falling apart. Yes, Trump can make the economy look great on the surface. He's using the tools that the central bank and the deep state have been using for a very long time. The mainstream media won't be able to counter this. They'll try, but it'll be very, very difficult. And he's showing the country that, look, the economy's doing well, because during every other president, we looked at the stock market, we looked at unemployment, we looked at GDP. And during this time, what did they do? They hid all the other things. They hid retail, they hid housing, they hid how many corporations are going down the tubes. They didn't let anyone know until the last possible second. And then all of a sudden, there's an emergency. Well, we're seeing durable goods right now. They slid lower. more than expected. And January's data was revised lower. So durable goods are the big ticket items, washers, dryers, computers, motor vehicle parts, and whatnot. Those are declining. And this is an indicator. But like we said, Trump and the Patriots, they needed to keep the system alive. Remember China? China injected a gargantuan $1.1 trillion in liquidity back in January of 2019. Well, this was coordinated with the Patriots to make sure the economy doesn't fall apart. Now, think about what the Patriots did. They controlled the Fed and they said, listen, you're not raising rates anymore. Boom, 2019, no interest rates are going to be increased. 2020, that's a whole nother story. We'll wait to get there. The Patriots also needed some type of stimulus. The Fed at the time was tightening. They were dumping their balance sheet. So to make them all of a sudden turn around and do this, it would be very difficult. Easier to stop the interest rates from moving up. So they needed an entity to inject trillions of dollars into the system. And that was China. Now, at the time, people might have been thinking, well, that can't be right. That's impossible. China is going to be injecting this stimulus, and Trump is working with Xi Jinping to keep the economy alive. Well, today we have a confirmation from the IMF. Christine Lagarde was out there, and she's saying the global economy has lost momentum, but will avoid a recession. First, she said, because the Federal Reserve is more patient. Yes, if they continually raise rates, guess what would happen? The economy would have fell apart. Plus, because of what China did, they injected the stimulus. Now, is this going to hold forever? Of course not. They don't need it to hold forever. All they need is to hold the economy together long enough for Trump to win the election. Now, why would they need that? So they can implement part 2 of this plan. Because we know, and we've had confirmation of this also, they were going to, and they're still going to try to use the economy against Trump. They're going to link the economy to Trump. And if it fails, he is to blame. Well, the economy is not going to fail. Just like they thought the Mueller report was going to show Russian collusion and obstruction. The Mueller report, the summary part, showed the opposite. They were completely wrong. Brennan even admitted, well, he got wrong intel. What's happening here is they're not getting new intel. They're still working off of the old intel. Why? Because the Patriots are in control. They're in control of what is happening with Mueller. They're in control with the investigations. They're in control of the economy. They're in control of the central bank. They're in control of all of this. And they stopped the recession from happening in 2020. Now, this does not mean that we're not going to enter a recession. I think Trump wants this to happen during his second term. First of all, he's not going to be running for re-election again. Third of all, he can do amazing things in his second term because he doesn't care about being re-elected. And he can really push the envelope in his second term. He can go after the central bank. He can push the health care plan. He can push the arrests. He can push the trials. He can push everything at this point. And you can see how everything is coming together. This is all part of the plan, but you need to be prepared because we are going to be going through some tough times. They're making it as easy as possible, and they're hoping that it doesn't hurt as many people. But remember, we're coming off one system which is based on debt, and we're going to a sound money system. So there's going to be bumps in the road as we switch over. There were bumps in the road when we switched over from a solid system with hardly any debt into a system that was based on nothing, oil. And it was a bumpy ride. There was high unemployment. Other places around the world were having trouble. There were gas lines. There were many things that were wrong. We're going to see the same thing once again, and this is why you need to be ready and prepared. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.